Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Great, thanks so much. All right, so good evening. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 39 affordable rental housing units at Loop 83 in Methuen. And so the purpose of this info session is to give you a little bit more background information on the available units. We're also going to cover the application, the eligibility and lottery process, and also what to expect after the lottery. So if you have any questions during the Zoom session, you can go ahead and either type them into the chat or you can unmute yourself. When you entered this Zoom meeting, you were automatically muted, you might have noticed, and we're doing that just to try to minimize any unnecessary noise during the presentation. So once you're finished speaking with any questions, and I'll be prompting you for questions throughout the presentation, just go ahead and mute yourself again. We also have a conference call that is running concurrently to this. So just in case you needed to join by conference call, I am going to put that information into the chat. Sorry. Plug that in there now, just in case. That's the conference call number. And so this is a live session. It's being recorded. You should have received that prompt when you entered the room as well. After tonight, this session will be posted to our YouTube channel, the SEB Housing YouTube channel, if you need to look at it afterwards. So any questions after tonight's session, the easiest way to connect with us is by email at info@sebhousing.com. If you prefer phone, you can do that. You can send us or leave us a voicemail as well. Since I have the chat open, I'm going to go ahead and put info@sebhousing.com in there. Any questions up until the deadline for this application or even afterwards, and then that's the number for us as well. And that'll be on the slides later as well. So any questions, any trouble viewing the screen that I'm sharing with you, anything like that yet? All right. So just a little bit of background on SEB Housing. We are a off-site affordable housing consultant group. So we're not an on-site management team or the leasing office for Loop 83. We're hired by the developer or the management team to go ahead and market these affordable units, conduct this information session, collect and review your applications to determine whether or not your household is eligible for the program, and then eventually run the affordable housing lottery. So in the initial phases, we are your main point of contact rather than the leasing office. But then further along in the process, that on-site leasing team will take over as your main contact as you move further along in the process. So there's really two broad steps in the process. And the first is to apply for the affordable housing program. And so that's the step where you'll be mostly in touch with SEB Housing. We can answer any questions you have on the affordable program, and we'll review your application and all your supporting documentation. And if you're eligible, we'll enter you into the lottery and we'll give you a position on the wait list. The second step, when you'll be mostly in touch with the leasing office, is separate from your screening with SEB. So your lease eligibility screening with the actual management company at Loop 83 might include a credit check, references, rental history, criminal background, things like that. And once approved by the leasing office, you'd be working with them to reserve and lease an apartment. So our website, which is listed here on the slide, so sebhousing.com, you can go to our website to find the application for Loop 83. You would go to our Affordable Housing Opportunities page, and then you would select Loop 83. And that's a page that's specific for this property. And there's an application in both Spanish and English, and the same with an information packet. The information packet has pretty much all of the information we're going to discuss tonight. So just even if you've attended the session, we would recommend that you go ahead and take a look at that information packet. We're not going to be able to cover every single detail in there, so it will be important for you to take a look at that as well. So if you choose to apply for one of these affordable units, you're first going to need to complete that lottery application, and then you could submit it to us in one of a few ways. You can, I'm going to switch back here. Your application deadline is August 1st, but you can send it to us by email. You can fax it to us. The fax number is on the first page. You can send it by regular mail, or you can go ahead and drop it off in Needham if you're in that area. We do have a 24-hour secure drop box there that is at our office at 257 Hillside Ave. So we check that mail every day. So whichever one of those options is easiest for you, we encourage you to get that application in early. It is fairly lengthy. And you're going to see when reviewing the application that there's a lot of supporting documentation that you'll need to supply. And that all needs to come in by that August 1st deadline. So you don't have to be a resident of Methuen to apply for this lottery. There are several units that you'll see in the information packet that are going to have local preference for residents of Methuen, but we'll discuss that more in detail. It should not discourage you from applying if you don't live in the city of Methuen. All right, so we're going to be covering a few things tonight, and let's talk a little bit more about the affordable housing opportunity itself. So Loop 83, it's a brand new 4-story, 156 unit apartment community, which is going to be located at 83 Pleasant Valley Street in Methuen. It has a convenient location. It's near a large shopping area. It has access to major retailers, restaurants, as well as Interstates 93 and 495. The amenities at the community include an outdoor pool, several courtyards, a playground, a large indoor amenity space, which has places to work, play games, a community kitchen, and a fitness center. And the community is pet friendly, and it even has a pet wash. There's 39 affordable units, as we said, and those are going to be made available through this lottery process to households earning no more than 80% of the area median income. And the affordable apartments are located throughout the complex, and the features within those affordable units are identical to the market rate units. The building is also equipped with 2 elevators. There are 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments that are affordable, and there are 19 total 1-bedroom apartments. One of those is disabled accessible and features 675 square feet. The rent for those apartments, the 1-bedroom apartments, will be $1,456. The 2-bedroom apartments, there's 16 of those for affordable units, and 2 of them are disabled accessible. There's 1,080 square feet, and they're going to rent for $1,725. There's also 4 3-bedroom apartments, and 2 of those are disabled accessible, and one of them also has features for sensory impairments. And the square footage is 1,312 square feet, and it will rent for $1,971. So these rents are considerably less than the market rate rents that will be charged in the rest of the development. What you want to keep in mind too is this particular affordable housing opportunity is not subsidized housing. So the affordable rent amounts are not set based on an applicant's income or financial circumstances. So this means that the rent doesn't change if your income changes. These are the set rent amounts for the property. So the rents for this housing program are set using a formula that's based on HUD, so Department of Housing and Community Development's area median income for the Lawrence area, which is where Methuen falls. So they're set with the idea that these amounts should be affordable for households making up to 80% of the area median income. The rents could increase once per year. That typically occurs around the time that HUD revises their AMI amounts, which is each spring. And advance notice would always be given to you as a tenant whenever a rent increase is going to occur. Usually they're pretty modest, between $25 and $75, but rents are never going to change in the middle of your term. So if you were signing a lease at Loop 83 this year, it wouldn't be, the rent amount that was just stated wouldn't be changing until this time next year. So the affordable units were selected by the owner and approved by Mass Housing. They're representative of the units in the building as a whole. So they're not the smallest units. They're not all in one location or in one corner of the building or anything like that. They're not identifiable as affordable in any way. And since it's possible that there may be more interested in eligible applicants than we have available units, that's why we're having this lottery process. And we're going to touch on the income limits and the different criteria for eligibility in just a couple minutes. So we've covered a lot of the logistics and a basic overview of the units at Loop 83. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Will you be
I do. I was wondering, when you said that the apartments are disabled and accessible, does that mean that they're ADA compliant, fully ADA compliant?
Yes. So there's one bedroom that is ADA compliant. There's two bedrooms, and there's 2 3-bedrooms.
Okay.
Yep.
And will there be offerings for like tours before the deadline?
Yep. I don't know off the top of my head if they're available now, but yes, there will be. Yep. So you can count on that.
Do you know who I can contact to know more information about that?
That information will be sent to you after the lottery. Well, let me get your information, and I will check in with them now, because even if you are not at the top of these wait lists that are going to be formulated after the lottery, you may be able to go see a unit if you're interested in doing that before you know if you're going to be at the top of that wait list. I just wrote down your name, so I'll reach out if you applied yet or no.
Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't hear me. I haven't sent it in yet. I just have to get one more thing.
Okay.
It'd be in by like tomorrow or Sunday.
Okay. So I'll get back in touch with you in a day or two about that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anybody else before I continue? All right, so the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program, they are on page 4 of the information packet. If you are reviewing that later, you'll see a lot of information on these. So there's 4 eligibility requirements, and the first is probably the most obvious because we've already talked a little bit about it, but there's income and assets of the household. So they have to be at or below 80% of the area median income for the affordable unit. The second is something to keep in mind for eligibility purposes too. The household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So on your application, you're going to indicate whether you're a type 1, 2, or 3 household. And as an example of that, if you're a type 2 household, you can go ahead and apply for a 3-bedroom unit, but you just want to be aware that all type 3 households are going to have priority for that 3-bedroom wait list. Sure.
When you say 80%, but what does that mean per year for a person? What is the most they can make then?
Yep. So we're going to get to that. Actually, you know what? I have a slide here. You can look at it too. So that's 80% for the Lawrence areas right there. And we'll read off those too in case anybody's on the phone.
That means they have to make, if it's one person, 62,600, they have to make no higher than that, but they can make less than that though, right?
That's the limit. So they need to make lower than that to qualify for this program.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, so your household type is tied to your priority for these wait lists for specific units. So just keep that in mind. The idea of it is that household types that are larger are given priority for larger units. So we don't want, and the program doesn't want families who don't necessarily need a 3-bedroom renting the affordable 3-bedroom, and then other families who actually do need the larger bedroom size don't then have a unit that could accommodate them. Page 7 of the information packet has a lot more information on household sizes. So the third eligibility criteria is that you cannot own a home upon move-in. So if you own a home now, it just has to be sold prior to leasing a unit at Loop 83. So if you're listening to this info session, just keep that in mind. You would need to sell the property have your name off of the deed before signing a lease. And the fourth really doesn't come up very often, but households who are applying cannot have financial interest in the development and can't be considered a related party. So these units are being offered by Criterion Property Company. So if you work for them or are related to them in some way, you might not be eligible for this lottery. And then just circle back to talk a lot more about the first eligibility criteria, income and assets of the household. So since these are affordable units, like I said, they're being made available to at rents that are lower than market rate rents that are going to be charged in the community. The maximum income limits for the program are set by household size. So this includes everyone who'll be living in the unit, and that list should be up on your screen now as well. These are also listed in the application, the information packet, and on our website. You don't need to write them down or anything like that, but they change every April and HUD sets them. So for the Lawrence area, a household size of 1, the maximum income limit is $62,600. A household size of 2, it's $71,550. A household size of 3, it's $80,500. Household size of 4, $89,400. 5-person household, the maximum income limit is $96,600. And for a 6-person household, it's $106,750.
I have another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So you're saying the maximum, say, one person could make is 62,600. What is there another limit on the other end? Like if they make like a certain number where if they make below that, then they're not going to qualify?
We're going to get to that in a minute. There is, but it's not set in stone in the same way that the income limits are. So the leasing office is going to be the the group that's going to make a determination as to whether or not your income qualifies for you for the program. So there is an amount that they've set, and we'll go through what they are for each apartment size. But it's possible that if you're slightly under that they would qualify you based on assets that you have and things like that. So that's kind of the shortened version. So yeah, we'll get to that in just a few minutes.
Can
So-
one person apply
Go ahead.
to two? Can one person apply to 2 types of households? Or is
Yes.
it like you can only have one application?
You only want to submit one application, but you do want to indicate if you're interested in more than one unit size. So if you're interested in a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you would just indicate that on your application.
Okay. And are there, for example, 2 separate lines? So let's say I apply for the one person, and me only being 1 person, I know I wouldn't have priority on the 2-person, but will I still be eligible for that one if I don't get the 1 person?
So not for this particular lottery. Some of the housing lotteries, yes, a 1-person household could apply for a 2. In this particular lottery, no, you couldn't apply for a 2-bedroom unless you needed some sort of a reasonable accommodation to that made you eligible for a 2-bedroom, like you needed an extra bedroom for medical equipment or something like that. But yeah, in this case, the answer is no, because the program is dictating that it has to be 1 person per bedroom. So a 2-person household can apply for a 1 or 2 bedroom. A 3-person household can apply for, a 3-bedroom and so on.
Okay.
Okay. So all households are going to be asked to submit supporting income and asset documentation. The required documents vary a bit depending on what your sources of income are, but all households are going to need to include copies of their federal tax returns for the last year and copies of bank statements for the last 3 months. Section 2 of the application is very detailed. It's going to list all of the information that you're going to need depending on what your income source is. So for example, if you're employed, how many pay stubs you're going to need, things like that. Just to give a basic overview of how your income is going to be calculated though, income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months. So, and that's for all household members. So all income is going to be included, which that includes, bonuses, overtime, types of income that you might not necessarily know you're going to be receiving. The only exceptions to that are minors. So anyone under the age of 18 who is earning wages, we're not going to count those wages. And for dependent full-time students who are working, we're only going to count the first $480 of any wages when we're determining whether or not you're eligible. We also are required to count gross income, so the amount that you make before taxes. And although you don't take that full salary home, gross income is required to be counted on the program. So just want to make you aware of that. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants, some households are going to have a consistent weekly salary throughout the year. They're going to get pay stubs every week. Others are self-employed, or maybe you're working seasonally. So in those types of circumstances, we may need to, when we're reviewing your application, we might need to look further back into the past in order to project an anticipated income for the next 12 months. And then specifically for applicants who have someone who's self-employed in the household, you're going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation for that. So there is a template and sample profit and loss statement that is in the application. So if you need help, creating one of those, we have that for you. If you're self-employed, your business expenses are considered, but for any other households, anyone who's not self-employed, it is always going to be gross income that we need to count. So in general, any income you have been making, since we're looking backwards to go ahead and project your income forwards, any income that you're making we're going to assume that you're going to continue to make going forward unless we have some sort of definitive documentation stating that you're not going to be earning that source of income anymore. So for example, you might have a written letter from your employer that bonuses and overtime are not going to be paid out in the next year. In general, we're not permitted to accept statements from applicants. So for example, if you had been making $80,000 in the last year, but you're now applying and telling us that you're going to be working far less this coming year and you're only going to be making $50,000, we're still going to need to count $80,000 as your projected income unless we have a written statement or some other official documentation to consider from your employer. So just keep that in mind. Some sources of income, just so they're all on your radar, there's a table in the application itself, but just to read through a few of them so you have them on your radar. Wages, either through self-employment or through an employer. Social Security, SSDI, child support, alimony, retirement distributions, unemployment, workman's comp, pensions. It could be even periodic payments from your friends or family, and how we would need some sort of a written statement from a family member confirming what the amount and frequency of those payments are if you are getting some sort of a steady income in that way. And then finally, assets that generate income would be counted as income as well. All right, so the minimum income. This was a question a couple minutes ago. So there's no minimum income for the affordable housing program. However, most management teams, including the team at Loop 83, wants to be sure that all of their tenants can afford the rent, regardless of whether the unit is market rate or affordable. So the management company has set a minimum household income, which is equivalent to 2.5 times the monthly rent. So and those amounts are listed in the information packet as well. So for households looking to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, the approximate minimum household income is $43,680. For a 2-bedroom, it's $51,750. For a 3-bedroom, it's $59,130. So households with mobile housing vouchers can disregard those minimum income amounts because they don't apply. If you have a housing voucher, your housing agency is going to pick up part of your rental cost wherever you use that voucher. But if you don't have, if you do have a housing voucher, you are going to want to check with your housing agency before applying potentially to confirm whether or not the payment standards or the maximum rents at your housing agency or housing authority are going to cover the rents that Loop 83 is asking. So the leasing office at Loop 83 is going to eventually confirm with your housing agency that the rents are permissible, but it's going to be best for you to know sooner rather than later if this opportunity is something that's going to work for you. So just wanted to throw that out there. Applicants without a voucher, you will need to have a household income between the minimum income amounts that I just mentioned and the maximum income limits that we talked about, the program maximum income limits. And the only exception to that is kind of what I alluded to earlier. So households with incomes just below that minimum income limit might be considered by the leasing office. And that's because you might have, liquid assets or some sort of assets that the leasing office is taking into consideration because you may be able to access them to afford the rent. So in short, the minimum income limits are not as strictly enforced as the program income limits, because those are a program requirement. So it's ultimately going to be the decision of the leasing team during your lease screening whether or not your household meets those minimum income requirements. And there's no asset limits for affordable rental opportunities. So you can have a significant amount of assets, maybe you're retired recently, and you could still be eligible for this opportunity. We are still, even though there's no asset limit, we are still going to need to collect information regarding your assets, and any income generated from those assets will be counted. And when you're thinking about your assets, it's not just checking and savings and CDs and things like that. We also would need to, we're going to need to ask for statements from your retirement amount, or accounts, I should say, Venmo, PayPal, stocks and bonds, that sort of thing, not the typical, just checking and savings account. So just try to have those statements set aside so there isn't as much back and forth with a complete application. Although if you do submit an incomplete application, SEB will be in touch with you to let you know what's missing and all of that. It's not sort of a one-shot deal. You'll be able to go ahead and complete your application if you didn't get everything into us the first time around. All right, so we've covered a lot so far specifically about the eligibility criteria.
I have another question. I thought I had it on mute before. So for example, the one bedroom was $1,456. Is that the market value or is that the affordable price?
That's the affordable.
So that's the rent for a one person.
Right. For a one bedroom, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, $1,456, and then two bedroom, $1,725, three bedroom, $1,975.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else on eligibility criteria, income, anything like that before we move forward?
What was the minimum amount for the 3-bedroom?
The minimum for which bedroom again?
The 3-bedroom.
The 3-bedroom minimum again was $59,130.
All right, thank you.
Sure. All right, and again, keep in mind if you're a little bit below that, that doesn't disqualify you. So you should still get that application in if you're close to that. The leasing office will have a look at the complete picture and let you know if you're eligible. All right, so lottery eligibility. As I mentioned earlier, if you're interested, you should apply as soon as you can to get the process started. We talked a little bit about this as well because someone had a question, but you can apply for more than one unit size. So if you think you'd be interested in a 2 and a 3 bedroom, for example, you should go ahead and indicate that on your application. There's really no downside to doing so, but there's potentially a downside if you only apply to one unit size and then you later decide you want a larger unit. There may not be any units left at that point. So, but again, just want to mention that for this specific lottery, unless you have some sort of a reasonable accommodation, a one person household wouldn't be eligible to apply for a 2 or a 3 bedroom. And a 2-person household wouldn't be eligible for a 3-bedroom because there needs to be 1 person per bedroom.
Can you,
Okay, so, oh, go ahead.
can 2 roommates apply for a 2-bedroom so they can afford it?
Yep.
And they would just check both incomes?
Exactly, right. Both any household member, it doesn't matter if you're not related to them or anything, would just be, we would need to screen the incomes as 1 household, so would be taking them both into consideration. Mhm. All right, so you get the lottery application into SEB. We're going to review that application and let you know if there's anything missing or if anything appears to be filled out incorrectly. And we'll give you a chance to go ahead and resubmit any documentation that was missing or make any corrections. Most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application to us with all the required documentation on their first try. And you know, don't be discouraged if that's the case for you. There's a couple of reasons for it. The first is just that there's a lot of information that is required. And the second is because even if you submit what you think is a complete application on the first try, sometimes some of the information like bank statements that you submit sparks more questions for us. So we might need to ask you for additional documentation afterwards. That's completely fine. We'll just give you additional time to get those added information into us. So that's really just why we encourage applicants to get their application in as soon as they can. So if you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number in the form of A.001, for example. If you're the first person to get your application in, that will be your lottery number. And that is the number that will be drawn in the actual lottery. It's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name isn't called out during the lottery itself, which is a Zoom session just like this. It's not a ranking of any sort. It's really just corresponding to the order in which we received your application. So like I said, if you're the first one to submit a complete application, it's going to be A.001. In that letter, which usually is in the form of an email, unless we don't have an email address for you, it's also going to confirm whether or not your household qualifies for local preference. And you will have indicated on your application whether or not you believe that your household does qualify for that preference. And you will have already submitted the necessary verification along with your application. So local preference might apply to you if you live in Methuen, if you work for the city, or if you work at a business located in the city of Methuen. So, and also if you have a child attending Methuen Public Schools. Up to 70% of the affordable housing units at Loop 83 will have a local preference priority, which means that some local preference households will get priority for those units when compared to households who don't have local preference. But you also want to keep in mind that your household type and whether or not you're eligible for a 2 or 3 bedroom is weighted more heavily than local preference. So what that means is if, for example, you're a type 2 household and you've applied for a type 2, or actually I should use the example, if you're a type 3 household and you've applied for a 3-bedroom unit, you're still going to have priority over type 2 local preference households, for example, for a 3-bedroom apartment. So if you don't have local preference, in short, you should not be deterred at all from applying. And more information about local preference is listed at the end of the info pack on page 17. And then finally, in that email that you'll get from us with your lottery number, if you've been determined to be, if you've been found eligible for the lottery, is going to also confirm that what your bedroom size, it's going to confirm the bedroom size that you've applied for, as well as whether or not you have indicated that you need a apartment that has disability or sensory accessible features. So all that information will be in the eligibility email that comes to you following our review of your application. If you're found ineligible for this lottery opportunity for any reason or any point during the screening process, maybe you're over income, maybe you own a home, you're going to be informed by us by email or a phone call or a letter in the mail, depending on if you have an email address or not. And you're encouraged to contact us with any questions, reply to that email if you're not sure why you didn't qualify. Make sure you just get back to us on that. We can re-review if we need to. So the lottery is going to be held on, I don't have it on the screen here, but it's August 15th at 6 p.m. So it's going to be in the same format as this information session. The numbers will be drawn from a box. We're going to hold them up to the screen so you can see them. We're going to record them. And also the session will be recorded. So if you can't make it to the lottery session, that's perfectly fine. All of the lottery results will be sent to all applicants, probably that night or early the next morning. So you don't need to be in attendance, but you will have your number drawn during that lottery. And so during the lottery, every lottery number is going to be drawn. So sometimes when we think of lotteries, we think there's just a few winners, but that's really not the case here. So the lottery is held in order for us to establish the wait lists for all of these affordable units. So if a, type 2 household is drawn first for a 3-bedroom unit, they're not going to be first in line for that unit size. And we also have to sort by local preference and things like that. So in general, it will be more beneficial for your number to be called early on in the lottery, but it's not necessarily going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you'll be moving forward in the process, because we do need to sort those results based on priority after the lottery itself. And then households who entered into the lottery might be found ineligible for whatever reason by the leasing office. So if your number is drawn way down in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope or anything, because you may still have an opportunity to move forward in the process and rent one of these affordable units at Loop 83. And then, like I said, we'll be populating the wait list immediately following that lottery. Typically, it takes no more than a day or even just 12 or so hours to get that out to you, the wait list, that is. So you will have those in hand and you'll know sort of what your next steps are very soon after the lottery. So when you're reviewing that email, you're going to find your lottery application number, so the A.001, for example, and then you'll be able to see where you fall on the wait list. So at that point, you'll have a better idea where you stand. And your next step will be applying for the lease itself rather than the program. So you've already been, at that point, found eligible by SEB for the program, and now you need to go ahead and apply for a lease with the leasing office. So at that point, we will be contacting the top households from each of the wait lists, and we'll be putting them in touch with the management team at Loop 83. So your contact information at that point will be shared with them, and vice versa. You'll have their contact info, and step 2, which is applying for the lease, can begin. So at that point, we have already completed the lottery. We have determined that you're program eligible, but we haven't screened you for that lease eligibility yet. So the management company is going to do that. That's where the credit check, rental history, criminal background determines whether or not you're eligible to rent with them. And you also want to be aware during this leasing process or lease eligibility process, you want to be aware that the leasing office may be inviting more households to complete lease screenings than there are available units. So for example, at Loop 83, there's 4 3-bedroom affordable units, but it's very possible that 8 or more households might be invited from the wait list to complete the lease screening. And the reason for that is just a lot of management companies do this because the process of leasing units is always slowed down by households who don't qualify or don't move forward in the process. So it's just sort of like a buffer. Sorry, I see a question that had come in about whether or not the information packet is available in Spanish, and the answer is yes. Both the application and the information packet are available in Spanish on the website, so our website. So if you go to sebhousing.com, click on Affordable Housing Opportunities, and then find and click Loop 83, you'll see them listed there. And then there was another follow-up here. The info session flyer did not have a time on for Zoom. I will check into that, because we're in the information session now, so I hope that that wasn't a problem for other people. So thank you for letting me know that. All right, so just to move along, so even if you're the first household on the wait list, you don't want to immediately give notice to your current landlord or inform them that you're giving notice because you found this new apartment at Loop 83. You haven't yet been approved by the management company, so you want to wait until the leasing office has approved your household. Just want to say that, because we don't want you to be losing your current housing opportunity because the process wasn't clear. So at this point in the process, it's really going to be beneficial to you if you have a position near the top of the wait list, because if you are the top household after we've sorted the wait list, you're going to have the first selection at affordable units. So if you have the top position on the 2-bedroom waiting list, you're going to have the first choice in reserving one of those affordable 2 bedrooms. And this is true even if someone else further down the wait list completes their application first. So the management company is going to have to wait for you to make your selection before they can allow the second person on the list, for example, to reserve a unit. So you'll be able to tour the unit and make a decision based on the location of the unit, maybe, or when it will be eligible for, when it will be available for occupancy, whatever types of variables and factors are important to you as the first person on that wait list. And then the leasing office is going to go to the second household on the wait list, and they'll have the second choice of the remaining units, and so on. So after you've done your program certification with SEB, that's good for 6 months. If for any reason you move in more than 6 months after submitting your application, you may need to submit updated income information to us to update your file. This probably isn't going to be the case for any of you, because I believe the units at Loop 83 are expected to be available soon, but just wanted to put that out there. Once you're leased, you're done with screenings until your lease renewal date. And at that point, we hope you've enjoyed living in your unit, and you want to stay in the apartment and continue living there past the first year of the lease. If you do, you would just need to recertify your income again, either with SEB Housing or the management office prior to your lease renewal, just to confirm that you're still eligible for this affordable program. And if during the year your income increases and is now above that 80% of AMI, that's fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable apartments as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of AMI. Page 16 of the info pack lists those 140% figures for different household sizes. But to give you an example, a household of 2 would have qualified for the lottery with an income at or below $71,550. That same household can make up to $100,170 at the time of their recertification in order to still be eligible to rent the affordable apartment. So you can make significantly more the next year and still be eligible for the program. So I think there's one question here in the chat. Okay, I think just someone wasn't able to log in. So hopefully the information packet is helpful to anyone who didn't attend the session, or you can watch it on YouTube if you wanted to see the questions that were asked and things like that. It is going to be posted on our the SEB Housing YouTube channel. That covers most of what I wanted to get to tonight from the information packet. Again, you're going to find the lottery application in both Spanish and English, as well as the information packet on our website, and then a little bit more information on Loop 83 in general. So I'll stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any final questions. And then if anything comes to mind after tonight as well, go ahead and email us at info@sebhousing.com if anything comes up later on.
I think you already said it, but was there anything included with the rent, or is all utilities the tenant?
I believe, now let me pull that up for myself real quick.
I read that utilities aren't included.
Yeah, I think. Yep, tenants are responsible for utilities. Sewer costs are included. So tenants will be responsible for gas, which includes heat, hot water, and then electricity. Cooking is included in the electricity bill, and then water. So those are all charges that the tenants at Loop 83 will pay, and then sewer costs are included. Parking is also included. One surface parking space is included in the rent.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
After the lottery like picks, how long do you think, what's an estimated date for the move-in after everything?
Yeah, so I think these units are pretty much ready to go. So following the lottery, which I think I said was the 15th, I would say, you know, you're going to be contacting, I think if you're at the top of the wait list, you need to contact the leasing office within 7 days to reserve a unit and take a tour and all of that. So you would be screened by them, might take them a week or so to do that. You could be moving in potentially for September, and it doesn't have to be the first of the month or anything. So you would work that out with the leasing office. So there shouldn't be much of a delay.
Okay, thank you.
Rosalie, I think you're raising your hand, so I'm gonna try to unmute you. Yeah.
Hello, thank you
Sure.
for information.
Sure.
I want to know the lottery will be thrown for soon again.
The lottery is going to be August 15th. Was that your question?
Yes.
Yep, it's going to be August 15th. That is, what day of the week is that?
If it is for here for Zoom, for the same Zoom.
Yeah, so it's going to be, yes, it's going to be through Zoom. Yes, it will be through Zoom. It has a different meeting ID and passcode though. So if you look on the application and the information packet, it's not going to be the same number, but it is going to be the same format. So it's going to be a Zoom session. You're just going to be logging into a different meeting.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions?
Are you guys open at your office? So if I were to stop by and hand in my application, would I be able to talk to someone in person?
So we're not open, but we do have that drop box. So if you were to come by our office at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham, you could drop your application there, and you can also email. Our admin team is always around to answer questions at info@scbhousing.com or the number that was in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? All right, well, thanks so much for attending, and we'll look
One
forward.
last question.
Sure.
Are there any opportunities to tour the ADA, the handicap accessible unit?
So I'll have to check with the leasing office and find out if any ADA units are currently, being shown or model units right now. So I can let you know that. Did you apply yet? I'm only asking because then I would have your email address.
No, because we want to make sure that it's actually ADA compliant.
Right. So if you don't mind either emailing info@scbhousing.com or
I'm handicapped. I could type my email address here.
sure.
And maybe that way.
Just do a private. Just do it privately to me, and I can go ahead and.
I don't know which person you are here in the group, but I don't mind putting it here.
Okay, that's fine. Sure. Yep, and I have one other message here. I'm going to get back to Wadali as well about tours. Anything else?
Yes, I have another question.
Mhm.
When will we know if we are eligible?
Sure. So you will be submitting your lottery application, and the processors at SEB who will be reviewing your application will email you or let you know if anything is missing at that point, and if anything is, they'll work with you to get a complete application from you. And then at whatever point that your application is complete, you'll be sent a lottery eligibility notice by email. And that's at what point you'll know that you're lottery eligible at that point. And then when the lottery takes place, if you're called and moving forward in the process, you will have to go through the lease eligibility process with the leasing office. So you'll know if you're program eligible soon after submitting your lottery application. And then after the lottery, you will go through the lease eligibility process with the leasing office at Loop 83.
Thank you.
No problem. Anything else? All right, thanks again for joining me. And yeah, any questions, info@scbhousing.com, and go ahead into our website to find that application and info pack. All right, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.